You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, Young and the Restless fans, we have got some hot new spoilers for next week with Nick Newman facing arrest over a murder and Cane Ashby seeming to tamper with evidence. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt, and we've got the latest Y&R spoilers for the week of July 21st. And hey, hit that subscribe button if you are not following us. So by the end of this week, Damian's murder has everybody on edge, with most people at the chateau suspecting that Cane Ashby did the dirty deed, and Nick is being framed for it. So as Y&R ends this week, Nick is still flipping out over the knife being planted in his rail car. And while Jack Abbott thinks it's insane to even think Nick would do this, Billy Abbott is not so sure. He thinks it is plausible that his ex-brother-in-law Nick might have stabbed Damian. And that's kind of an awful way to think. I mean, I think Victoria would be very mad to hear Billy even say that about her brother. So Nick, of course, thinks that Cane is framing him and is keeping the French police away from the scene of the crime to buy time to clean up and destroy evidence like DNA and stuff. Nick thinks because the cops weren't called and we've just got out of jurisdiction chance they are doing stuff, that all the evidence has been corrupted. Maybe it's lost. Clearly things have moved around. And Nick also thinks that Cane absolutely killed Damian, and he's getting upset when Phyllis doubts what he is saying, what Nick is saying about Cane, that he did it. And then Nick is lashing out, and he's actually accusing Phyllis of basically believing in the other guy for no reason and kind of selling her soul to have this job with Cane. And of course, Sharon is all on Team Nick, all on his side, and Phyllis insists that all Cane got was a broken heart by Lily, and he does not deserve these murder accusations. And that's making her ex-husband real unhappy, and Nick says that Phyllis is going to sit there and watch her new boss Cane send him to jail for a crime that Nick didn't commit. And then Phyllis also defended Cane, saying to Nick, look, Cane was with me, so he couldn't have been the one who planted the dagger in your rail car. And bottom line, Phyllis doesn't want to fight with Nick, but he's all wound up and he's being Mr. Poopy Pants, and he stomps away. This is his mode that I call Nick the Stick, where he's got something up his backside. However, in this case, he's justified because he is being framed for murder. So Sharon's actually being nice to Phyllis, who again says Cane's innocent. She says she could tell he's not guilty just by the look on his face. And Sharon and Phyllis are debating at the end of the week on Young and the Restless who would frame Nick for Damian's murder. Phyllis and Sharon think that the Abbotts and the Winters would not be doing this, so they wouldn't be framing Nick. And in Phyllis's mind, she's thinking that that leaves Sally, and Sharon's talking about Audra, and they're talking about the people that work for Cane, including Carter and Amanda, and we know there's some other random staff kicking around. But next week, things are going to get much worse for Nick Newman. So first of all, his dad, Victor, is not happy about the framing and all this, and he is grilling Cane's assistant, that sneaky little guy, Carter. And Victor is basically accusing Cane of killing Damian and wants to know from Carter if Cane confided in him his plan to murder Damian. And Carter is telling Victor that he would do anything for Cane, but not what Victor's suggesting. So Nick's dad is clearly very worried about the frame job. And also next week, Carter shows up at Nick's door on the rail car, and he's got a security guard with him. So Nick's not happy and is like telling Carter, what do you want? Nick's already mad, and Carter says they are going to place Nick under arrest. Now, again, it's just a security guard, so they're calling it house arrest. But with real cops on the way, this could turn into a real arrest. And Carter tells Nick that taking him into custody is for Cane's safety and the peace of mind of the rest of the guests. I don't think any of the other guests are worried Nick's going to murder them. And this is not going to go over well with Nick, because they're basically coming to his door and saying, we think you killed Damian and we think you're still plotting to kill Cane. So speaking of Lily's ex-husband, Chance and Cane are together reviewing all the security footage from those cameras he's got placed all around the property. And then when it gets to the location in the maze and the time of the murder, well, there's no footage. Looks like the cameras were turned off or something was deleted. So Chance wants to know who has access to this area, and Cane's like, me and Carter and Amanda. So Chance assumes that it's either Carter or Amanda that deleted some of this footage, and Cane insists it's not him because he said the footage would have proved that he's innocent, and based on what we saw in the episode, yeah, it would have. And so next week, Amanda comes into Cane's office where the camera feeds are, and she sees him going back through all the security footage. So Amanda asks Cane what he's doing. He says he is trying to find the footage, but Amanda is worried that Cane is in there deleting footage that might be evidence. And Amanda tells Cane that's the worst thing he can do. But interestingly, he actually thinks Amanda was the one deleting footage. So that means it could be Carter doing it, since both Amanda and Cane, if they're being truthful, they're telling each other that they're not the ones doing it. And Carter seems like a dodgy dude. Also, there's more danger afoot next week on Young and the Restless. At the end of this week, Chance tells Nick that some of the surveillance footage is missing. And of course, Nick totally loses it. And then he says that Cane is manipulating and setting up things. And Nick wants Chance to do something. But of course, he's got no jurisdiction. And then Cane walks up on them, and Nick promises he's going to get to the bottom of this before, and this is important, before someone else is hurt or killed. So there is more danger next week. Somebody is watching other guests and lurking, kind of like they were before the attack on Damian. And next week, we're going to see Audra and Lily possibly in danger. But hey, if you haven't seen Friday's episode yet, also, just real quick, you know what? Audra is so upset about the murder that she goes to tell Kyle that Damian was killed. And guess what? Kyle answers the door, dripping wet in this low-slung towel, all the abs on display, nothing else on. And Audra is acting all scared, which seems legit. She is. But then she tells Kyle that she feels safe with him. And Audra and Kyle start kissing. We knew they were going to cross lines this week. So next week, we'll find out just how far that went. And also next week, Audra is in the maze with Lily, and they hear something. And Audra seems really scared, and she's calling out who's there. And she was already scared, before, and then she got that kiss from Kyle that seemed to calm her down. Now she's scared again. The good news is that Audra is in the same dress in these scenes with Lily that she was when she was making out with Kyle. So hopefully that dress stays on and Audra and Kyle don't go further than kissing. We'll see. And be sure and come back tomorrow for our full Young and the Restless weekly spoilers for July 21st through the 25th.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.